everybody. Welcome to our very first episode in a special series on the 18th Lok Sabha elections. We've got the dates now. India will vote over 7 phases starting April 19th. Counting will be on June 4th, and 4 states will also be electing their governments during this period. Now, the Indian elections are much admired, much respected, and also perhaps a little romanticized, not least because of the massive scale, the massive numbers that it deals with. But what it's most admired for, perhaps, is the fact that every time we have an election, we reinforce India's commitment to democracy. What is that commitment and faith looking like this year as we count down to the elections? I'm going to ask our former Chief Election Commissioner, Dr. S.Y. Quraishi, who is a very, very popular commentator and a prolific writer. His latest book is India's Experiment with Democracy. Dr. Quraishi, it is so lovely to see you make time for us.
My pleasure, Anuradha.
What would you say if you had an index of faith in democracy? Where would our ranking be today as a people?
There are already about a dozen indexes of democracy. Almost all of them show us as a flawed democracy. I came across the word flawed democracy for us in the Economist Global Index of Democracy. The Economist has been coming out with this index since 2006. So my first reaction as an Indian, oh, this must be a Western conspiracy. We have great elections and they're calling it flawed democracy. What nonsense. But when I studied the reasons, I found it was exactly for the right reasons. For instance, very low representation of women. 43% of MPs in parliament have criminal cases pending against them. They themselves, through their affidavit, have given the details of criminal cases pending against them. So these kind of issues bring the quality of democracy down. And one thing which emerged very clearly from there, that we were only going gaga over election. Surely even the same index gave us 9.7 out of 10 for our elections. Now, great elections do not convert into great democracy. That is the lesson which came out of that. Because we provide level playing field, even to criminals, they are not debarred from contesting. We provide level playing field. If they come out winner, at least election commission cannot be blamed. So therefore, our democracy definitely, according to various indexes, has questionable track record. Now, media, you are from the media. In media, we are 144 out of 160. Yes. What a shame! What a shame for the greatest aspiring greatest democracy, largest that we are. Yeah, largest we are, but aspiring to be the greatest. No, this is not how we are going to be the greatest.
So it's very interesting that one statement you've just made, that great elections or the conduct of great elections does not mean that we are a perfect democracy or a great democracy. Let us talk about that in the context of 2024, Dr. Quraishi, which is we are talking about elections and the first polling date is April 19th. Let's start with the fact that we've got a chief minister in jail, also another chief minister earlier from Jharkhand, Mr. Soren in jail. Do you agree when a public intellectual and commentator like Pratap Bhanu Mehta says that this is the moment where we are now moving into a full-blown tyranny?
Well, definitely this leaves bitterness in the mouth. Because now these are the kind of things which we used to see in Pakistan. Several leaders who were potential prime ministers, they were proceeded against judicially through the due process of law, and they were disqualified from contesting, and which is the situation now. That is something which happened in Russia. Now, do we want to be compared with those countries? We are a great nation, and they are not real democracies. So, but if in our action, if this is how we will be compared by our critics, mind you, the whole world is looking at us with interest. In fact, once I asked a diplomat friend that, do you think the world knows what is happening in India? He says, there are ambassadors of each country sitting in Delhi. What else do they do the whole day? They keep sending reports. So, no, this doesn't reflect well. Now, 2 chief ministers inside, many others in the queue. So it doesn't look nice. I mean, these things could have waited for 3 months. We have to provide level playing field. So now freezing the accounts of a party, whatever be the valid reason, a 36-year-old case, 7-year-old case, but then you freeze them on the eve of the election. So can't it wait for another 3 months?
Yeah,
This,
we
yeah.
heard the Congress party's top leadership, including the president and the Gandhis, actually say that they don't have money to buy ads, they don't have money to give their workers to, to campaign. Have you, in your long career as a bureaucrat, as a civil servant, and then as our chief election commissioner, encountered this scenario in the past?
Forget about chief election commissioner as a citizen. I haven't. Have you? This is absolutely a new phenomenon. And of course, for anything that we do or we do not do, there will always be justification. There will be 100 people justifying it with law, rules, regulations, and everything. But on the face of it, the perceptions are important. As the cliche goes, that justice should not only be done, it should seem to be done. So, level playing field has to be provided. And in fact, somebody asked me in an interview a couple of days ago whether election commission has any role to play. My answer, and what would I have done? I said that election commission's constitutional mandate is to provide free and fair level playing field for free and fair elections. Level playing field is a key word that we use. And free and fair elections is a basic structure of the constitution.
Dr. Quraishi, very clear that today in 2024, as we count down to the 18th Lok Sabha elections, we do not have a level playing field for political parties, and these are perhaps not fair elections that we are going to see play out or being conducted.
Well, as I said, the optics are important. Prima facie, the fact that most of the opposition leaders have some ED cases, IT cases, some cases. So, and then there is an exodus, a transfer from one
But
alliance
yeah.
to the other. So, how is it happening? What is it? What is happening? Now, people are not blind. Some are, many are, but the people in sensible people in the country is not blind, and we see that there is some nexus, some connection between. Suddenly, these agencies, they are doing their job. Of course, they are doing their job, but they are doing job very selectively. And again, Joe, the charge which is made about the whitewash and the laundry, now we hear it all the time. So we
Washing
cannot,
machine.
yeah, washing machine. So we cannot dismiss it lightly.
These are very strong words coming from you, Dr. Qureshi, and you are someone who, over the decades, I have seen in public discourse, very tempered, very optimistic, somehow cautiously optimistic about the nature of India's political system and its institutions. But you don't seem to be exuding that optimism, that cautious optimism which you've always exuded. Am I right in interpreting the way you feel today in this manner?
No, actually, I feel upset that that is what you notice and you perceive. Maybe I'm getting old and senile. That's why this change. But in any case, at the end of the day, I am optimistic because one thing which I would like to remind you: if you heard the press conference of the CEC when he was announcing the election,
Yes.
The grandeur of India's election, the magnitude, the scale, the biggest, not only the biggest election in the world, the biggest humanly managed event of the world,
Yes.
and with 15 million staff, all government servants delivering a zero error election. See, all the greatness of our exercise should not be missed. But what happens is these more visible things dilute the great exercise that is being done, and it does color your the public perception, and
Before
I feel concerned.
How do you think this will impact the voter? Because you have young voters. I know how the Election Commission over the years and decades makes concerted efforts to, get people to enroll, to check whether they're on the voting list, to enthuse youngsters, people who've just turned 18 to come and exercise their franchise. It is a thing to be proud of. And I think Indians have imbibed this great pride in being a democratic nation via the means of elections. Do you think that this pride, this faith, this confidence in the power of the vote has got diluted over the past 5, 6 years? And especially because we've seen that we go and we vote for someone and something. But in a few years or sometimes even a few months, the whole parties change partners, parties are broken. I mean, I'm speaking to you from Mumbai in Maharashtra. We have seen two parties be completely broken, right? The Shiv Sena and the NCP.
Well, it doesn't require an opinion of a former CC. It is for everybody to see what is happening. The way the party, the way they split, the way they are artificially split, and all that is happening is abnormal. It has happened to some extent in the past, but on the scale on which it is happening now, with the regularity, it's something to be concerned about. They say there is no dharam iman, it's just opportunism or pragmatism. Therefore, turncoat has become a very normal activity. What happens to ideology? There's nothing called ideology left anymore. We can see it, can't we?
Will this not make voters cynical? Do you see cynicism creep into voters in their decision to go out and cast their vote?
Correct. Actually, when we set up water education division, about which you had also once discussed with me. So we had done some studies called KABP studies, knowledge, attitude, behavior, and practices, and particularly asking youth, why is it that you don't register and you do not vote? Something of your good, it is your political empowerment, and you are not using it. So, two, three answers. One, that they did not know what is the qualifying age to become a voter. They did not know what is the procedure. But most important, relevant to the question, they were very cynical. They said, "Sab neta chor hai." When the sab neta chor hai, why should we go and vote? And all this is a very dangerous statement. Sab neta chor nahi hai. We have become a great country because of good political leadership across the years, and even now we are becoming a world power because of strong and quality political leadership. So, but cynicism of the voter has been there when we did our study 10 years ago and 15 years ago, and now it is likely that there will be. At the same time, cynicism of a different kind. Ask a jobless youth, what do you want? So he will perhaps say, no, job to milti rahegi. हमें तो एक particular community को fix किया जा रहा है. That is more important, which only a strong leader can do. Then if this is not cynicism, what is? He's not bothered about the job. He is interested, to fix a particular community. We have heard it from so many people, and we have seen it from the results. After demonetization, hundreds of them died, but they still voted in a particular way. After COVID, lakhs of them walked 1,000 and 1,500 kilometers, died on the way, but they still voted a particular way. So what does it show?
I mean, it shows that some very deep-rooted prejudices and bigotry has come to the fore in the majority of the people.
Correct. In fact, my own feeling is that polarization as an electoral strategy has been working for the last 20 years, and the nation hasn't found a counter to it. It's working. And perhaps only the thing which will ultimately solve the problem is the fatigue. At some point, people will get tired of that strategy. And because, I've very often said that India is secular because Hindus are secular. And for which have been questioned by international media sometimes. What do you mean by that? I said, look, when India and Pakistan became separate nations, they were partitioned in the name of religion. If Pakistan became an Islamic Republic, India could have easily become a Hindu Rashtra at that time and nobody would have batted an eyelid. But who chose to become a republic? Hindus. The Constituent Assembly, which had 94% Hindus,
Yeah.
unanimously chose a secular constitution. So basic ethos of India and Hindus is secular. If you see many YouTube channels, the way they are analyzing this, and even Hindi channels, they have millions of followers, and they are all those who are speaking their mind. They're telling the truth and boldly. So, and they're all Hindus. So, mind you. So, which is what proved my earlier point that basically India is secular. Hindus are secular. They are the guys who are fighting this battle. People like me don't have to even speak out. You are there to speak.
What shall I say? I'm not supposed to be at a loss for words when I'm conducting an interview, but Dr. Qureshi, to hear you say this makes me feel so bad for all of us, as a nation, to see polarization work, and I hope, Dr. Qureshi, that the faith that you repose in the secular nature of Hindus will reassert, that this secular nature will reassert itself, sooner rather than later. In fact, as soon as possible. But I mean, I can feel your pain. I can hear your pain. And all I can say is that आपका दिल का हाल हम सुन रहे हैं, Dr. Qureshi. मरहम पट्टी नहीं नहीं लगा सकते हैं, लेकिन सुन सकते हैं. That is all we can do at the moment. But let's go back to some of the other issues that we are grappling with.
To make it a bit lighter, I remember the line of a song, Dil ka haal sune dil wala. So maybe it is your sensitivity. Yeah. Anyway, sorry.
But yeah, no, Dr. Qureshi, I think you need music, and you need philosophy, and you need visionary thinking at this point of time. But let me come back to some of the key issues, most substantive issues. Electoral bonds. You have written about it ever since this concept was created in 2017 by our former finance minister, when he presented it to Parliament and electoral bonds became a reality. You have talked about it over the years. You've even mentioned it in your book, isn't it?
So let me show you the book.
Yeah.
And there are several articles on electoral bonds, again, about half a dozen or more.
Yes.
In this, yes.
Yes, the Supreme Court's judgment finally in February, which junked these electoral bonds and said they were unconstitutional, has accepted all these arguments that people like you have put forward, and the petitioners like Common Cause and ADR have definitely put forward. The SBI data is now in the public domain, and all these reporters across media are actually putting things together. When you see the results of who has got what contribution, what kind of companies, the quid pro quo trails that are being revealed, your worst fears have come true?
Absolutely. This judgment is exactly what I have been saying for the last 6 years, to the last word. Everything which is said in the judgment, I have said in my articles. In fact, I'm very happy to tell you, please allow me to indulge in this a little awkward thing, talking about me and my book. This book was launched, among others, by no less than by Mr. Fali Nariman.
Yes.
The biggest constitutional expert. And once I wrote an article, one of which is published here, on which he wrote a letter to me. Okay, Mr. Quraishi, this is the best article I have read on electoral bonds. I'll recall just one line. I think, look, if there are positive things about electoral bond, that from cash economy, it is all banking. No problem. Please, if you are in love with it, keep it. But I offer a 30-second solution. Just tell us who donated to whom. That's all we wanted, and which is the crux of the Supreme Court judgment. And the quid pro quo, I had also posed that question. Because, the reason given was, initially, I must remind you that in the budget speech, Mr. Jaitley started beautifully. He said that without transparency of political funding, free and fair elections are not possible. We were so happy to hear this because that's what we have been saying. His second sentence was equally good. That for 70 years we have failed to achieve that transparency. Now, what will be the your expectation from the third sentence? Okay, look, I'm going to introduce transparency. His third sentence was that I'm going to kill whatever transparency existed. And reason, because the donors want secrecy. Now, I have two objections to that. Number one, I've raised this question: why do donors want secrecy? The word that you rightly used is to hide quid pro quo, the contract, the licenses, and the big bank loans, lakhs of crores which are written off, and with those loans they run away. So that is what they want to hide. That was one thing for their wanting secrecy. Secondly, I have been questioned the concept of secrecy. I said same donors have been donating for 70 years. They've not asked for secrecy before, and they're clever enough, they're smart enough. They donate to all political parties, rival candidates, and their practical stand is कि हम सबको फंड कर रहे हैं, जो जीत के आ जाए हमारा ही है. Whosoever wins is our man. So that's what they have been doing. Suddenly उनको secrecy क्यों सूझी थी? Because now that is coming out, tumbling out of the cupboards of parties.
So there are two arguments being put forward by the government, notably by the Home Minister, Mr. Amit Shah, because he was at conferences where he was asked about the electoral bonds and what the Supreme Court judgment has said. He said two things. One, he said, was now that you've said electoral bonds are junked, he says black money will come back rushing into the political system. And the other thing he said was to defend the magnitude of the money that the BJP got, his party got. He said, look, we have these many members of parliament, and therefore this justifies proportionately the money we have got. In fact, the opposition, who has less members than we do, the opposition alliance, those parties have actually got more money than we have got. Do you accept these? And if you don't, why?
Number one, that BJP got the maximum money. I'm not surprised at all, and I've been defending it. Look, the ruling party always has the advantage. Whichever ruling party, whatever the time, whichever state, they are bound to get more money, which is what has come out very clearly. Now, parties in different states which are in power, they got a decent amount of money. In fact, I would have still not been surprised if 99% of the money was going to the ruling party at the center, which is not the case. Just about 50%. The other 50 has gone over to everybody. To that extent, I agree with that argument. And Mr. Shah also mentioned a correct thing with which I agree, that, the cash, the earlier pre-2018, what was the situation? Was it a happy situation? It was not. And who was protesting about it? People like me. Officially, even as an incumbent CEC, we were writing that this is not a happy situation, because 70% of all the donations to political parties were by cash. According to the data which EC collects and ADR processes for all of us, and repeatedly it was about 70%. Now, what is this 70% money? Is it black money? Is it drug money? Is it foreign money? So all those things, those were the questions we were asking. And are we now back to square one? In a way, yes, but mostly no. We are back to pre-2018, which is a happy thing, because 5 other acts were amended. For instance, the limit on the donor. Now, you could not donate more than 7.5% of your profit to a party. That limit was totally taken away. Now you could donate 100% of your profits, and even loss-making companies can donate. So what is it? That was legalizing and legitimizing crony capitalism. So which is what we wrote then. Judgment has come now. In my latest article, a day after the judgment, I said, forget about it. Of course, post-mortem of a bond will come out. Lots of skeletons will keep tumbling out. But forget about this. I leave it to media and others to deal with this. What now? What next? I have given the positive solution. I've been writing, and I repeat now. And now, for the first time, I find an audience for my suggestion. I say that let us set up a national election fund, to which the same corporates will donate. Now, many people had been saying that state funding of election or political parties is not desirable. Why should we taxpayer, why should we pay the politicians? I've heard it many times. All right, so let us rule out state funding. But there can be a national election fund to which the same corporates will donate and without fear of reprisal, which was the excuse for electoral bonds.
Yes.
After all, PM Relief Fund, National Disaster Fund, all these funds, the parties do donate. So create a national election fund.
Let's say this national election fund is created, where, as you have suggested, and corporates and whoever wants to donate money puts it in there. How does it then get distributed among parties? Some formula will have to be worked out, and that's practical.
No, I've written that formula. Start with the formula first. If we have a fund, whether it is donated by corporates or from the state exchequer, distribution formula is my first formulation. Number one, fund political parties. The political parties have to run, and for democracy, they are extremely important, and they need money. So give the 100 rupees per vote based on actual performance. Every other figure in the world can be fudged. You give me some money, I'll say I spent 2 crores, so therefore give me 2 crores. Every other figure can be fudged, but the number of votes which I got, that cannot be fudged. So on that basis, 100 rupees per vote, I roughly calculate, can be 200. Now, why I had mentioned 100 rupees? Because 65 crores people voted last time. So at 100 rupees, 6,500 crores. Will this be enough?
97 crores, isn't it?
No, next time the number of voters, but how many will vote? Right? Because on the how many will vote? So if 65 crore people voted and we give 100 rupees per vote, it adds up to 6,500 crores, which we can give to political parties based on performance. The next question will be, will this be enough? My answer is yes, it will be enough, because when we see the figures of collection from all political parties over 5 years, at the time when I wrote, it was only 5,000 crores. If you are collecting from all sources, including twisting of the arm, corruption, bribery, 5,000 crores, here we are giving you 6,500 crores by dignity, by check. So, therefore, based on your electoral performance, second question which many people have asked, what about new parties? And what about independents? I have an answer for that. I think, no, we cannot give it to new party before they have demonstrated their seriousness. Suppose we start a scheme from tomorrow, 1,000 parties I can guarantee you, because it takes just 30 days to register a party. 1,000 party will get registered. Sarkar se muft ka maal aa raha hai, chalo register karo. You have to first prove yourself. And
one election you have to fight on your own device.
On your own. And a great example is already in front of us. Aam Aadmi Party fought the first election without money, and they won hands down. Now, on the basis of the performance, 67 out of 70 seats, if this formula was to be applied, they would have been very rich, because they would have got all the money, but rightly earned based on performance. So this is a scheme which needs to be discussed.
Dr. Quraishi, one quick question, and before I close this, the Election Commission, which you have been a part of, and an institution that you and your predecessors and people who've come after you have helped build. This was an institution seen with a great deal of admiration and fear at one point of time, and it had control. People listened to what the Election Commission said. There was moral authority once the Election Code of Conduct came into place. Do you feel the institution is as strong today as it should be and it could be?
Well, that's a bit difficult question to answer, that because unfortunately there have been occasions when the Election Commission has not risen to the occasion. Although having been on that job, I feel especially pained when I see people raising fingers. Because this is an institution, reputation take years to build and seconds to demolish. And like every citizen, I'll be pained if I see the Election Commission getting into question, and I'll feel extra pain because I also laid a few bricks in that institution. So therefore, if something, for instance, 2019, somebody sent me 34 headlines of different newspapers, all each worse than the other. whereas we were used to different headlines. Oh, EC is the winner. Forget about the parties and the candidate. Congratulations, EC. Wonderful, EC. EC, well done. What happens to those headlines? So, unfortunately, that was the thing after 2019. But a lot depends on the incumbent. We remember Mr. Session, there have been 25 or 30 CECs. Why do we remember Mr. Session? His personality and the incumbent. So there have been incumbent and their own performance, their working style, their temperament, the quality of their steel frame, everything, it may differ, and which gets reflected sometimes. But there is no denying that Hillary Clinton called India's election gold standard. Surely we'd have done something to deserve that kind of a title. And also, let me tell you that when I was in the Election Commission, I set up a new institute called India International Institute of Democracy and Election Management. Despite hostility of the law ministry and law minister at that time, I went ahead and did it. And I'm very happy to tell you, in 12 years, 108 countries have trained from us. And not students, school, college students, but election commissioners of 108 countries. They're making a beeline, which means in election we are a wish guru. So we should not lose sight of this, and that is something which gives hope. At the same time, like Caesar's wife, this wish guru, India's election commission, should also not do anything on which our critics will point fingers.
Okay, Dr. Quraishi, I will ask you one last question, and which is, what would you say to the first time voter, someone who's a new adult and is going to cast their vote for the first time and is aware of all of the current nasty headlines about political parties and the political culture in the country? What would you say to that voter? Why should he or she go and cast their vote?
Well, I will tell them that every vote counts. And every vote, for all you know, it may be your vote which will be the deciding factor. And I've mentioned in my earlier book how one leader in Rajasthan lost by one vote. One vote. And incidentally, it was his wife who had not voted, which is a side interesting story. But how one vote can make all the difference, and it may be your vote. So therefore, please register yourself. Please go out and vote very thoughtfully. Do not get seduced by promises like a free liquor or some freebie or some money. Because if you take 1,000 rupees for a vote now, it will be a bad bargain, because then you have no moral right to get anything, to expect anything from your MLA. He pays you 1,000, you will have to pay him 50,000, 1 lakh for small works that you will ask him to do.
Okay, Dr. Qureshi. On that note, I'm going to say thank you very much for this conversation and for setting the tone for this series that I'm trying to do as we count down to and experience the 18th Lok Sabha elections.
Thank you very much, Anuradha.
Thank you.